Four friends on a winter hunting trip are forced to take on an alien invasion and also to bring back a friend that they haven't seen in a long time. We're back in Stephen King territory as we're about to remake Stephen King's Dreamcatcher Right. Hello, my fellow cinematic architects, and welcome to Remake This Movie Right. We are a member of the Hollywood Outsider Network. Listen to episodes of Remake This Movie Right on Apple Podcasts where reviews are appreciated, or your podcast app of choice, or you can just visit the website at remakethismovieright.com. Remake This Movie Right is a show that takes an original film that has an actual remake in the works, typically, figure out what still clicks and what doesn't, throw a little bit of humor at it, and then we determine exactly how Hollywood should remake it. So by the end of each episode, we will have the remake ready to roll for Hollywood execs and present it to you in movie trailer form. We are here to tell Hollywood how to remake this movie right. I am your host, Aaron Peterson, and joining me today, you might remember him from our Stand By Me, Con Air, and the Matrix episodes. He's also the host of the Blacklist Exposed, Mr. Troy Heinritz.
No, I done it.
And you know him from The Mist, Stephen King's It, and every single episode of Remake This Movie Right, courtesy of media Voice-Overs.com, the voice of this very show, Mr. Wayne Henderson.
Wiki, wild, Wayne Henderson from your Packers Fan Podcast. How you doing?
That was great. You managed to work in Wild Wild West and your own plug for Packers. I love it.
Any chance I get.
Go Paco! So are you guys, I gotta ask, because we typically do these Stephen King episodes a couple times a season. One at the beginning, one in the middle, one in the end. And this is I think the middle, roughly. Little after the middle of the season. Are you guys excited to do another Stephen King one?
Always.
Yes. Maybe not this one, but yes.
No, well, I'm always happy to talk about Stephen King, whether it's good, bad, ugly, fantastic, or what have you.
I think after we do this one, we have to do the Langoliers. Just out of precedent or something.
Do you want to close out the season with the Langoliers?
I think we could do some really cool stuff with that movie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that one really could be done really, really well.
I'm game. And by the way, since this is a Stephen King episode, The Dark Tower, I think, is coming out the week this episode will release, or close to, or the week after, something like that. And we are recording this on the 19th, actually, the 19th, which is a big Stephen King number in The Dark Tower. I don't know what it means. Nobody tell me. But these guys keep telling me it means something. So, little insight. I hope that's cool for you King fans.
It was destiny, or you might call it Ka.
I don't know what this means, but apparently this is cool King stuff. I didn't read Dark Tower.
Well, Aaron, you only have 132 hours of audiobook to listen to, and it'll all make sense.
Or 4,204 pages in paperback.
Yeah, so we're going to be waiting for that 95-minute movie. Yeah. Woohoo! All right.
Better not be 95 minutes.
It is 95 minutes. Yeah, it is.
That is short.
It is
short. That is too short.
It is Gary Coleman short. That's how short it is. Very tiny. All right, well, if you haven't figured it out yet, for this episode, we are remaking another Stephen King film. But this time, it is not a classic. Instead, we wanted to reach into the well and pick up a Stephen King film that's widely regarded as one of the worst King adaptations of all time, to remake that film right, if you will. It holds a whopping 30% on Rotten Tomatoes and is more famous for Morgan Freeman's fantastic eyebrows than anything else in the actual movie. That is Dreamcatcher. For those people that don't know what the movie's about, God bless you. You're living life better than we are. But it's about four friends that learn that the town that they're vacationing in for their annual retreat is under siege from parasitic alien life forms, as well as nefarious government agents, and that a childhood friend has been preparing them for this battle to save the world their entire lives. You know what, Troy, I don't know if we can contain your negativity just yet, so let's move on and start with Wayne, because he can spill negativity in a positive way. Wayne, what were your initial thoughts of Dreamcatcher? Did you read the book? What did you think of the movie, the connections to the movie? What were your initial thoughts?
All right. First, let me say, with Troy and mine experience of podcasting about Under the Dome, a fantastic Stephen King adaptation for television, we are very well prepared for this evening. I don't really have very many memories of this movie. I just saw the movie version just last week, and Ooh, wow. I don't know. The book itself, and we'll touch on it a little bit, but I know we're focusing on the movie. The book itself is pretty dang convoluted. The movie, the parts they decided to put in the movie, to me, unless I missed something, it made no sense.
That feels accurate. It feels accurate. What about you, Troy?
Well, I thought Waze is this great navigation app that if they had Waze in the middle of these backwoods, they would have been able to avoided all of the military roadblocks and alien incursion spots, and they could have escaped and not have to deal with it at all. But more importantly, Morgan Freeman's voice was actually used for the Waze app at one point in time. And I always thought it was cool when he was like, turn left, get busy turning, or get busy dying. But now I think that we should put the lines he has in this movie in the Waze app, because those are fantastic. I have no idea how he came up with word combinations like this. It was just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
I think things were drawn out of a hat. And let me tell you, I know, Troy, you are super excited to be talking about another Stephen King property that involves space eggs.
Mm-hmm. I was like, I finally have the idea now how Under the Dome, the television show, made it into realization, because King was like, let's mix a little bit of Dreamcatcher in with a great novel and let's ruin the TV show.
Well, I remember I wanted to see it in the theater and missed it in the theater, which normally I'm a big theater guy. You guys know that. I like to see everything in opening weekend if I can. I didn't catch this one when it came out, and my mom, I think it was my mom, but she's a huge Stephen King fan, and had suggested that I see it because the book was, and if I remember the words correctly, bad crazy. Pardon my French. So that really got me interested.
I see what you did there.
That got me interested. I'm like, okay, I'm curious. I got to see what this is. And then I saw the movie, and I don't know, man. I've seen Stephen King adaptations where I was angry at the end of it. I've seen King adaptations where I thought, wow, that was phenomenal. And I've seen some that were just in between. You know, hey, they got some stuff right, they got some stuff wrong. This is one where I'm like, They only changed a couple things, but they were huge things that changed. That directly affected the movie, and therefore made it to where I don't even know exactly how I feel about it. Does that make sense?
This movie stands in a category all by itself.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for people, if you haven't seen it, you can go to Netflix. You can watch it right now, because obviously we're going to spoil it. We're going to talk about the movie and then how we could make it better.
Or you could just read the synopsis on Wikipedia and save yourself the 90-some minutes that it was. It was 2 hours.
2 hours. 2 hours, 15 minutes.
What is up with that? Dark Tower is going to be 90 minutes, and this thing gets 2 hours plus?
Mm-hmm. Rip off.
Total BS.
You guys got robbed. We all know Dark Tower should only be 19 minutes, right?
No, 19 hours.
Oh, my.
It should be 99 minutes is what it should be.
I don't know. I still don't know what that means. So you're still talking Greek to me. Okay. Well, let's get on to this movie, Dreamcatcher. Please subscribe and review us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, whatever podcast app you use. If you have your own pitch or thoughts on this week's show, you can email them to remakethismovie@gmail.com or join our Facebook group. Please do that. Remake This Movie Right. Right now, here's a clip from the original Dreamcatcher.
I would like to point out that Aaron chooses the clips, not Wayne and I. So,
which clip would you like?
If the toilet clip comes up at any point in time during this podcast, Aaron picked it, not us.
Aaron would not pick it. That's the one scene I'm like, this could be a really cool scene, but it's not.
You, Henry, can have that priceless piece of cinematic trivia absolutely free.
I'm filing that in the who gives a shit section of my memory warehouse.
What's the memory warehouse?
You don't remember the memory warehouse?
I must have forgot.
You forgot about the memory warehouse?
Just remind me, don't give me a lot of shit.
It's in his head, B. We've all got one.
Hasn't that place been condemned? Not yet. It's just that it's so crowded now I have to throw something out every time I learn something new. When I got my new laptop, I had to throw out all my files of rock and roll lyrics.
My warehouse was washed away in a flood about 10 years ago. It's gone now.
I didn't know they had enough beer in Maine for a flood.
Oh. Hey. Huh? Hey.
Jonesy.
If that really is your what do you do with all the discarded files?
I burn them.
All right, well, some trivia. We always do some trivia first. This is one of those infamous films that Stephen King sold the rights away for $1. And what happened was Stephen King wrote...
Because he was still on drugs at the time.
That's possible. Oxycontin, right? He was big on Oxycontin.
Yep.
Well, here's the story. Stephen King wrote the novel while recovering from his near-fatal car accident, right? You guys remember that?
That happened in 1999. Yes,
Okay.
I do.
On the 19th.
Of June.
Ooh, now I understand. I'm getting a little understanding for the 19th. Ha ha ha. The accident is reflected in the story, particularly the graphic scene in which Jonesy is run down by the car, and then we flash forward where they're already on their hunting trip. Weird transition, but that's beside the point. In 2014, Stephen King told Rolling Stone that I don't like Dreamcatcher very much, and stated that the book was written under the influence of Oxycontin. I think that's fantastic.
I mean, most of his books were written under the influence of something, so I think you should have just gone back to the cocaine. It was better.
Oh, no.
Wow. I can't wait till he listens to this episode. That's Troy Heinritz. You can email him at, I don't know, Troy Heinritz at thefullheinritz.com or something. Thomas Jane did the film because his mother is a big Stephen King fan, and she told him to.
What your mom says.
Thanks, Mom.
That's one where you might want to call Mom and say, hey, this
I
one's
hope she gave you a good allowance when the box office totals came back.
Yeah, it's the third film William Goldman has adapted from a King novel. The others were Hearts in Atlantis. That one's not a bad movie. That's one where
That's not a bad movie. That's pretty good.
Okay. And Misery. He adapted Misery, too.
Which is also good.
That's great.
So what went wrong?
We'll get there. Lawrence Kasdan, who is the director, and by the way, this is the same Lawrence Kasdan who is shepherding the Han Solo movie and a couple of the Star Wars movies. So just letting you know.
Out. I missed that note.
Yep.
Whoa.
He directed Empire Strikes Back as well. Yeah, well, he admitted that the film's failure had wounded his career, later preventing him from getting 2 films produced. Yeah, the guy that directed Empire Strikes Back had his career affected.
Find work.
Yeah, because of this. Absolutely great. But you didn't know that, Troy? You didn't know it was that Lawrence Kasdan?
Well, I there could have been like multiple Lawrence Kasdans in Hollywood, I suppose. But I didn't realize he was tapped to do the Han Solo movie. I'm trying to like avoid Han Solo anything.
No, he wrote it. He wrote
thing.
it.
So I've been in the dark. So I didn't know he was coming back to do Han Solo.
He wrote it. He's not directing it. He wrote it.
Oh, he's not directing it. He wrote it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, he wrote this. He helped write this too, right? So
in some way, don't directors help write it anyway? Because it's really their vision at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I know
they changed the script
Goldman
enough.
Adapted it, but Lawrence Kasdan is a writer, so I know he had to have some influence as well in what direction they went.
Well, I get the impression that he read the first 50 pages of the novel, and then every 70 or so pages, he peeked back in for another 1 or 2 pages, jumped back out, and then went on to the end.
Well,
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Right. Well, he worked on it with William Goldman, so they worked on it together. And it's important to note, okay, so if people think, well, this guy's a hack. No, this guy wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark. He wrote The Bodyguard. I actually think it's a good movie. Silverado, he wrote The Big Chill, Body Heat. I mean, he's got a very storied career. This one is just not part of it. So
maybe they were together in a main cabin in the backwoods on an Oxycontin bender for the weekend when they wrote it.
Oh, Troy. Troy.
Total method here.
Either that, or while working on this film, they actually were taken over by space parasites, and they wrote the movie.
That seems plausible at this point. All right, the character of Colonel Kurtz in the novel was changed to Colonel Curtis for the movie, which is a weird change. So the audience wouldn't think it was a reference to Apocalypse Now, even though it is that reference in the novel.
Exactly right. For a reason.
Weird. Mr. Gray's death in the film is complete, and this is one that really just blew my mind. His death in the film is completely different from the book. In the movie, he is killed by Duddits in the water supply room. In the book, they use their powers. Both Henry and Duddits smother him to death with a pillow. It's also important to know, for people that have never read the book, that what is Duddits not in the book? Anyone?
Not handicapped?
No, he is handicapped. He's not an alien.
Oh, yeah.
He's not an alien. That's a huge change to make when you're following the book pretty closely for the most part. That's a weird change to make, don't you think?
Well, how could you explain the superpowers that he gives all the boys in the movie? You know,
I didn't even pick up from the movie that he was supposed to have been an alien, because the movie, I was trying to piece together a way that it would make sense without plot holes, and I couldn't. So in the movie the movie I just watched last week, Duddits is presented as an alien.
You missed those awesome special effects.
You didn't see that's the whole ending.
The whole transformation when he like grows his own tail and stabs Mr. Gray from behind.
I think
you missed that completely.
I think he's the smarter one of the two of us. He's like, I ain't gonna watch this whole movie. This movie's
No, I watched the entire movie, took copious notes, and somehow that just went right over my head. But yeah, that's a total different change from the book.
Yeah.
It looked like a completely bad relationship breaking up, like Mr. Gray and Mrs. Gray were tumbling on the ground.
It didn't even look good. It just looked like Jello fighting. Just weird.
I guess in a way it might make a little bit of sense because Duddits and the boys are from the town of Derry, Maine, and Duddits' home address as a child was 19 Maple Lane in Derry.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's really obsessed with 19.
He might actually be related to Pennywise or the giant turtle of enormous girth.
I'd go for the turtle because technically Duddits is on the good side of the good guys.
That's true. Mystery solved.
And I should mention real quick that on the DVD, there's actually an alternate ending where Duddits survives and his leukemia eventually kills him. So we find out he's actually not an alien. And then later we see Henry and Jonesy go to the cemetery to his tombstone and basically start singing Blue Bayou. They cut that out, so instead, Duddits is an alien. Whatevs. All right, let's get into the original movie. Let's talk about Dreamcatcher and what you did like. You know, we always try to start with the positive. What did you like? You know, it's easier when they're beloved movies, but when we're talking about a movie that is critics were not kind to, audiences didn't feel kind to, people that see the movie are not typically kind to, where do you guys sit with it? I mean, tell me something you liked about it. Troy, tell me something.
I absolutely love the opening credits. I think it was the perfect setting, the perfect mood, and it was just everything that you wanted to get ready for a King movie. And I love the ending credits. I thought those were the best ending credits I ever saw. Everything else in the middle, it's a little hard to find one good thing. Personally, I like the toilet scene. I think the toilet scene is the best part of the movie because it's funny, and you're just sitting there going like, how ridiculous is this going to get? And because it's so ridiculous, it's actually pretty good.
All right.
Like seriously, like you just can't lay off the toothpicks for 5 minutes. Like you're addicted to toothpicks, not cocaine, not Oxycontin. You're addicted to toothpicks. And you have a giant alien that's trying to crawl up your ass and you got to get a toothpick.
Like
really,
you do.
Jason Lee. Come on, Jason Lee.
Sometimes you got to do it, man.
But because of that, it was freaking hysterical and it was awesome. I love that scene.
Is that sincerity? I can't tell right now with you. I can't tell where you're at.
No, because that's when it clicked for me. That scene, and then when you see Mr. Gray as the alien and then go poof in that red cloud of dust, I'm like, I remember this movie and I saw it in the theater. And I'm like, and I can't believe I have to finish watching another hour and a half of it.
Yeah, he's texting me, I hate you. I hate you. I hate everything about you.
I didn't even know this was in the theater at one point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it did.
For a weekend or two.
Yeah, it didn't do too well. I think it just made its budget back worldwide, but that's not
$70?
It had a $68 million budget.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
All of that must have gone to Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, he took
that was the thing I liked. It, you know, there's this movie that I already saw had not so great reviews. Nobody in the cast that I really, really knew, save for one character. And then Morgan Freeman comes on the screen. I said, okay, here's some legitimacy. This is going to get good. But I don't remember his eyebrows looking like that.
It's a hell of a makeup trick. That's one thing I love about the movie. I love his eyebrows. They are like their own character. They should have their own language, I think, at some point. It's fantastic.
I was like, this is awesome. Alien invasion. Eugene Levy just invaded Morgan Freeman.
Oh, my goodness.
I just snorted. All right. Wayne, tell me something you love. Tell me something you liked about this movie.
That's what I loved, was the fact that it had Morgan Freeman and that he was so un-Morgan Freeman-like. I mean, out of the blue, you know, because he's a little bit of a crazy commander, and then he shoots that guy just almost out of the blue. Boom, gone. And then he apologizes for being so, I don't know, on edge. It was just, that was my favorite part of the movie, was the fact that Morgan Freeman was unlike anything I've ever seen him in before.
Well, I'm going to come up with a couple more than you guys. Now,
well, we should probably collectively say it was good that they kept it to the origination of the main area. so that it still flowed with the Stephen King universe and that they still were in Derry and things of that nature with the water supply. So all of that stuff sticking through with the movie, I thought was fantastic that he was able to incorporate and not move it to like Alabama or Florida or some strange thing. So keeping it true to Maine, I thought is fantastic.
Well, in adding to that, one thing that I thought was great about the movie, and I'm not saying that the movie was great. I'm saying that this is a great thing because it hardly ever happens in adaptations. You know, and I didn't read this book. I've read a lot of King books, but this isn't one that I read. But I did enough research to know what the book was. You know, I felt like I read about 50 pages of explaining exactly what happens in the book. And based on that, now granted, I'm just going off of those descriptions, it seems to me that this is a fairly faithful adaptation until you get to the end. So,
correct.
Is that correct? Did you read it?
I read about half, and then I asked Wayne what the hell happened at the end, and Wayne's like, I still don't know.
I listened to the audiobook the entire 22 and a half hours over the past week because I want to be prepared for this podcast episode, doing my research.
Yeah.
And the book was, for me, better than the movie, but still very convoluted. I could just tell Stephen King was not right, and he seemed to have been trying too hard to mix it in with Derry, like he later did with more success in 11/22/63. They touch on Derry for part of the book. But in the book version of Dreamcatcher, the whole second half of the book is almost all in Derry. It's like half the story.
Really?
Well, because he has to go back so many times to explain how the kids got these powers. So there's so much flashback happening in the book, and they all grew up in Derry. So you get a real big concentration in Derry instead of being in the Jackson Township or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally just a suburb of Derry. So really, they're not that far away.
Wayne, I got a question for you. So you
right here.
Listened to 22 hours, and Troy and I are like, man, we've wasted 2 hours. So
he really only wasted like 12 to 15 because he did it at 1.5 to 1.75 speed.
Yeah, you are correct. You know me very well. Yes.
Okay. You guys want to get a room? That's fine. So my question is, do you feel the book was worth it? Do you feel that the book had, even though it was a little convoluted, was the story intriguing, insightful, interesting, even if it was a little off for a King novel?
It was like Under the Dome, wasn't it, Wayne?
In some ways.
75% of the book, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever written. And then you're like, what just happened?
No. And I didn't even really enjoy the Under the Dome novel that much. I hated every single character. I was hoping they were all going to die much sooner in the book. But this book did have some great ideas. But at the same time, I could really tell that Stephen King was just going through the motions and it made no sense. And he was trying too hard to bring in Derry. And in some ways, it almost seemed like he was also rewriting The Stand with this infection and the aliens. And then are they real or is it all in their heads? It was just wackadoodle. I have to read every single Stephen King novel, but this one's one and done.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it felt like he was trying to mash up everything that he's done before.
That worked.
Almost like it was a precursor for some other project he was working on.
Okay.
This was the first draft for that.
Well, and
yeah,
going back to the movie, one thing I really like about it is the memory warehouse. I know some people don't like that, but I like the concept. I don't think it was executed well.
No.
I don't.
It wasn't introduced well to begin with.
No, it wasn't introduced well. Like nothing about it worked in the scope of the movie, but I thought it was a really cool idea. You know, to explain how he is still able to maintain some semblance of consciousness while he's being invaded by the alien. I like that because it gave you a chance to still relate to a character that otherwise would be gone. You know, most of the time in movies like this, like The Thing or something like that, where a parasitic alien has taken over the body, the host, you no longer know what they're thinking. You no longer know what they're feeling, and that gave a way to do that. I thought it was a very clever device. Now, it doesn't seem like that was actually, like it wasn't called the Memory Warehouse in the book, correct? Is that correct? Was it called Tracker
Brothers? The exact title, but they did kind of talk about what it was. And that's when I finally realized that's what was happening in the movie was by reading the book. Oh, that's what they're alluding to.
So what do they explain it differently in the book?
No, they just explain it a bit more.
I gotcha. I like that. I thought that was a cool idea. And I didn't hate the movie. I mean, I know a lot of people say it's one of the worst movies ever made. I saw that a lot when I was doing research. I'm like, one of the worst movies ever made? Really? I mean, I can think of at least 50 off the top of my head that are worse than this movie. It's more of a mediocre to not okay to okay. I mean, it's somewhere in the middle. Like, I would have it on in the background doing something. I wouldn't stop what I was doing. If I was flipping channels, I wouldn't stop. But it's not awful. I don't think it's awful. It's just not good.
It's like they wrote sections of the movie independent of each other, and then the editing room tried to stitch together like 6 different pieces of the script. Like, there just wasn't any flow to the movie was the issue.
Yeah, it was
like the whole opening where you're introducing the characters and like, oh, this is what this guy can do and this is what this guy can do, and like, I have no motivation for why this psychiatrist wants to kill himself. I have no motivation, and it's like, hello, we're telegraphing the entire time, but he's going to get hit by the car, and yet he still walks out in front of the street, even though he knows in his head he's going to get hit by the car. He just goes ahead and jumps out in front of the car anyway. And then it jumps to the woods thing with no explanation of why they're in the woods in the first place. Like, I thought he got hit by the car. I thought he was dead. What's going on? You know? Hey. So I think it was the editing and the sequencing that was the issue with this movie more than it was the story and the acting.
Well, we might as well segue because I got nothing else. So using that as the things that we don't like about this movie, that what you just described is my first memory of that movie. When I was going back to rewatch it, the first thing I remember, the only thing that I really remembered about the movie, other than the fact that Thomas Jane once again lost a chance at a hit movie because he couldn't catch a break his whole career. He could never catch a break. He could never get in a hit movie. And I find him to be a very good actor. Other than that, that's the moment when he gets hit by the car. I think that moment is fantastic. Like, that came out of nowhere. Didn't expect it. Scared the hell out of me. Thought it was great. Very intense. And then they haphazardly like cut it to where they're already on the trip and they're just kind of explaining it away. It was an awful, awful editing choice and story choice.
It was super confusing. It's like they should have just started in the woods and then did the flashbacks to like, hey, we're on this awesome camping trip and we always come up here every year. Like, hey, let's catch up. Tell me about what happened to you the last year. Dream sequence back to the whatever they had at the front part of the movie. And it would have worked so much better.
Or anything. Put a buffer in between. I mean, there are ways to do it that are better than what was done here structurally. It just did not work at all. It was very jarring. It made me think for like a good portion of the movie, well, is this a dream sequence? What's going on? Like, is he really there? Was getting hit by a car just a dream? What the hell is going on? Even though he acknowledges it there, I'm like, well, that just feels like a dream, I guess. I don't know what the hell's going on. I didn't like that.
That's the same question I asked myself when I watched that ridiculous scene of Jonesy on the snowmobile, leering, kind of like a monstrous mustache twirling villain, swiveling his head back and forth, and because he's invaded like by Mr. Gray, and he's got these different personalities, and I just thought it was so badly done. And then, what's the deal with the alien inside Jonesy's body joking around in a bad British accent? I mean, do all parasitic aliens joke with terrible British accents? It was just horrible. I was horrible.
Why are aliens Monty Python fans? That's weird.
Right.
Yeah.
It seemed more like Benny Hill.
Do you put me to the nearest interstate, please?
That was an odd choice. Was it written better? I keep reading that it was written better in the book. That particular character, actually him and Henry, were both written very well in the book. Is that true?
I wouldn't say very well. It's better than in the movie, but I don't know. In some ways, it just reminded me of some scenes from The Stand, but I don't want to, delve into that because that could be something in the future. But it was definitely better in the book, and it goes on forever in the book. I'm thinking they're still around, but then near the end of the book, partway near the end, they start talking as if, well, I guess maybe Mr. Gray was never really there, and all of this has been in my head since I was a child, caught in Dudditz's Dreamcatcher. And then later at the very, very end, they're like, no, maybe it was real. And I was like, just make up your mind. Was it real? Wasn't real?
All right. That was one of my big ones. What didn't you like? Troy, you love to jump on this bandwagon. What didn't you like besides what we've already talked about?
Everything having to do with the military. I thought it was over the top, completely useless. I mean, I get that you're trying to get the setting of these poor 4 boys are trapped between the angry military force and the, oh my gosh, don't hurt us. We're little tiny aliens that are waving up to the planes, even though we're going to get nukes dropped on our heads. Yeah, the military was dumb. I couldn't stand the military. I hated Morgan Freeman's character. It almost ruined Morgan Freeman for me because I just love everything the man does, including his ways, directions. Yeah, my remake, there's no military. I'm just telling you right now. I'm taking the military completely out.
Okay, so military's a problem for you.
It is.
Got it. Because of the eyebrows, they scare you? Was that part of it?
No.
All right.
No, I mean, they're like, it literally was Independence Day until the giant red cloud of dusted smoke nuked up from the top of the mothership or whatever it was. There's no point for the military to even be there.
No, there wasn't, other than those eyebrows, which I'm still saying should get a spinoff. Like, they could get their own film, I think, at some point. All right, Wayne, what about you? What's left that you didn't like?
They're actually the little slugs that they lay in the eggs. That's actually what they are. That's why he's acting the way he is. He's all crazy because he's got 2 slugs over his eyes.
And I do not like the slugs. And I didn't like the very cliched ending where we think we've got all the aliens dead and we're safe. Wait a minute. There's one more little slug in the corner that's so convincingly crawling, working his way to jump into the water and destroy the world till splat. It's so cliche.
It was heartbreaking. I cried for that little slug.
Because you wanted it back on Morgan Freeman's face?
No, because I wanted it to get in the water supply and like, oh, that's why there's a giant slug in the TV version of it. Then it would have made more sense.
that was an odd choice because basically, all right, so you got Henry looking at Jonesy and he's giving him that look like, how do I know you're you? And Jonesy's like, I'll show you. Boom. I just saved the world. All right, let's go get a pizza. What? I mean, it seems pretty easy.
With anchovies.
Exactly. I already talked about the Duddits being an alien thing, but that's just a weird ending. One thing that I really disliked,
it's a cool, surprising twist, though, because you don't expect him to be an alien.
I liked it better when he wasn't an alien, like when he just had powers. Because sometimes I'm a big fan of not knowing everything. I don't need to know. I don't need everything spelled out for me. I don't need you to tell me every aspect of a character's reasoning and trait and how he came in to be with the powers that he currently has. I like wondering, and I like leaving there going, man, I wonder, like, how did that happen? Was he born that way? Did he have a nuclear accident? I mean, what happened? I like not knowing everything, and it feels like they threw that in there just to explain why this would happen for him. And I didn't like it. I really didn't. The other thing I really didn't like, every kid actor except the kid that plays Duddits was awful. Just
yes,
awful. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm maybe you were going through acting classes. I don't know, but Duddits actually was really well, and I thought it was really good. And Donnie Wahlberg I thought was really good as the adult Duddits. And he's the only one when he gave a badass moment, he actually looked more threatening than the alien at one point. So I'm like, go Donnie Wahlberg, you got it going on. But the kids, awful. Nothing about them felt genuine. You watch a movie like Stand By Me, like we did a few months back. Those kids felt 100% real. When they're trying to save Duddits, it feels like they really have no capacity to save anybody. They're just bad actors. I really didn't like that.
And I'm wondering how many Stephen King movies and books are we going to have where there's like this gang of kids fighting against a greater evil, or even in the case of just fighting against some slightly older bullies. I mean, we saw it in Stand By Me, in It, in this, and there's probably many, many more.
Oh, yeah. That's his
I think
thing.
Stephen King must have had some issues as a child.
At least there's no orgy, Wayne. There could have been an orgy.
No, thank goodness. And I sure hope the remake of It does not have it.
I was waiting for that report from Wayne as he's reading the book. I was like, so when they save the girl from the little storm drain, is that where they get the powers from?
Guys, get down here.
They have a giant circle.
The thought crossed my mind like, oh no, in the book, oh no, he's going to go there again. Because I know Stephen King's on Oxycontin and he's recovering from a painful accident. But no, nothing to the extent of in It, the novel, where all of the kids have like a little preteen orgy. But there is, talk, as Stephen King loves to talk about naked people.
Oh, I get it. I mean, I'm with him. I'm with him on that one. So
there you go.
In terms of powers, Jonesy, he can lock memories away in his brain. Peter can find things mysteriously, and Henry can basically tell people their past, or he can assume their past. What exactly does Beeve do?
No
Choose
idea.
on toothpicks.
You're stuck on a toothpick. Oh, back to that scene, Troy. I should have explained it. I liked the scene to a degree. I thought it was a really intense scene, but the whole justification for him, basically allowing enough time for the monster to get out was a really stupid reason.
Oh yeah, it went on way too long.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't go all the way out to the shed to go find one roll of duct tape buried in like the dark. Just run to the kitchen and look in the junk drawer where everybody else keeps their duct tape, and then rifle through the junk drawer and then just have them like explode to the toilet because it's just so more overpowering.
And
let's just say, if you enjoyed that scene with the toilet and the guy's stomach growing and the gas and then the dying and exploding, it's covered repeatedly in the book. There's like 3 or 4 cases of people whose stomachs are getting distended. They have the world's worst gas. And I'm like, what the heck, Stephen King?
King literally had vocabulary vomit when he was writing this book. Like, he described what the gas was like in such detail.
Mm-hmm.
That you could smell it coming out of the book.
It wasn't. That part wasn't necessary. Do we need to make it an ass alien?
No.
Isn't there another way to do that? I don't know. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to add to the actual movie Dreamcatcher? Any good, bad, ugly, positive? Maybe some positive thoughts? The cast? How about the cast?
I've got a little positive, and it's mostly from the book. It's one of the things taken from the book. I don't want to continually go back to the book, but this was a cool thing, though it's even better in the book, with the aliens pretending to be helpless. We're helpless. There is no infection. We're dying. And
save us. Don't kill us.
I thought that was a cool thing because I could see where that could mess with some people's minds. Like, oh, they are helpless. I believe it. Look how cute they are. And in the book, I do like how they take it a little bit further, where the aliens are, during that same exact scene, they're also impersonating famous celebrities and world leaders from around the world. So Stephen King was just calling out everybody that was famous in, 2000, 2001. And the aliens were doing great impersonations. So on the news, some people were buying it like, oh, well, Bill Clinton says they're safe and they're helpless. It's just crazy, but it was a cool twist.
That's actually really cool.
Bill Clinton.
That's really cool. I like that. I didn't know that, but I like that. That's pretty cool.
Which is also the part of the book I didn't understand when I read it, because I'm like, how do they impersonate people if they can't get out of Maine? They've tried before. We've always stopped them before. Like, they've never encouraged anywhere in order to know what Bill Clinton looks like. So how can they impersonate Bill Clinton?
Cable TV.
The last thing I will say, this movie is probably one of the prime examples of a cast can't save everything. The story is the most important aspect of any movie. This cast is stellar. Like Timothy Olyphant, you've got Damian. What's his name from?
Damian Lewis.
Thank you, Damian Lewis from Homeland. He's great in Homeland if you ever watch it. I think Thomas Jane is one of the most underrated actors of this generation. Morgan Freeman, obviously, he's a fantastic actor. Tom Sizemore, great actor. A lot of problems, but a great actor. The cast is Jason Lee also. I don't want to leave him out. The cast.
Don't forget Timothy Olyphant is in there too.
I said that. That was the first person I said.
Oh, did you?
I did. I don't forget Raylan Givens, man. I just don't. It's a great cast, and they could not make this work. The direction, I think, is even fairly solid. It's just the story doesn't work cohesively. It doesn't flow like I think it was Wayne said. Wayne or Troy, one of you said it. It doesn't flow. It doesn't feel smooth, and that's what the movie's problem is.
Don't forget that Rosemary Dunsmore is in this movie too, and she is now featured in Orphan Black.
I haven't seen Orphan Black. You know this, Troy.
I know. She was also in Total Recall.
The new one or the old one?
The old one.
Who'd she play in the old one?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Well, you are helpful.
I just know she was in it.
Well, don't be throwing out facts if you can't help me figure out where those facts lead, man. Lead me to the promised land.
Is this the part where one of you calls the other one a dum-dum?
She's the doctor. Dr. Lull.
You dum-dum. There you go, Wayne. That was for you. So, should this movie even be remade, or should it be placed in don't touch status? Troy, or Wayne. Wayne, I'm going to Wayne.
No, this movie
don't breathe status.
Movie very well could be remade. And I think the reason where I might even go with using the term should be remade is that Stephen King, along with my other favorite author, Philip K. Dick, everything they've written is being redone. I mean, Stephen King's got 3 TV series, I think, over the next year, as well as the Dark Tower movie, It, and everything. So,
and the Dark Tower TV series.
And that's the one I'm really excited about. So why not? Stephen King's on a roll, and I think we can make it much better despite this source material.
All right. Troy?
Sure. Why not? Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, if ever there was a case for a movie to be remade, it's this one. Here's another clip from the original Dreamcatcher. Promise there's no toilet bowl.
What was that, Mr. Jones? What did we just pass on the road there?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, I am, Mr. Jones. Or is it Jonesy? That's what your friends call you, isn't it? Let's be friends.
Why are you letting me live?
I'm borrowing you. We're going to take a little journey.
Beaver never hurt a soul, and you killed him.
Your friend had nothing in his head. I've already found something useful in yours.
Okay, now normally we would tell you about the intended remake, but there is not one. This is a movie we picked specifically because it is seen as a bad Stephen King
Aaron
movie.
hates us.
Yeah, and I don't like Troy and Wayne. So this is their punishment for all the mean things they do to me. They don't do it. They're wonderful people. I thought it would be fun. It's fun. So since this movie is getting a remake eventually, someday, hopefully with our logo attached to it, and as fans, we always think we know the best way to do that. How should Hollywood remake it? You guys already know the rules. All selections are settled by a best of 3 vote, with each host receiving 1 cut per episode to be used whenever you are extremely passionate about any idea. Everybody understand these rules.
Yes, except for one caveat, and that's because Wayne took the bullet for all of us by reading all the way through the end of the book. I am deferring my cut to Wayne so that he can get the movie that he wants. So Wayne gets 2 cuts this episode. I will not use 1 at all.
Oh my goodness, this feels like poker.
Wayne, you apparently get 2 cuts. Are you happy with getting 2 cuts? Are you good?
Why not? I've never used one before, though I believe it could have been in our missed episode. I was thinking, I'm going to have to cut, but no.
Here's what we want to do. Each person gets a chance to throw out their pitch, and then we'll see what direction we want to go. Which one of you guys want to go first?
I will.
Okay. All right. Somebody had to take the bullet. Let's hear it, Troy. What's your pitch for Dreamcatcher?
I'm still working through this. So it's evolved, much like I haven't had enough pills today. The thing I loved about the movie was this concept of Dreamcatcher. And it wasn't that it was the hanging thing that you hang to catch your dreams while you're sleeping, because I have no idea how the heck that even tied into the stupid movie, to be quite honest. But the concept of catching dreams, I thought we could play on that a little bit. And what I really love about Stephen King's properties is that anything with the kids really resonates. Like when you watch even the TV series of It, the kid portion of that movie is really, really good. And Stand By Me is really, really good. So I think we need to focus more on the kids and then eventually move to where like the adult thing takes place. So what I was thinking was kind of modernize it a little bit. And this whole concept of the military is not going to be in my movie, but the thing that the military said is that the aliens have always been trying to infiltrate, trying to find a way to propagate and take over the world. Well, we're going to use it from a different perspective. So instead of there being spores or red dust or whatever it would be, because that's how they actually procreate once they're infected and fully immersed or whatever, they're actually using digital like radio transmissions, like electromagnetic properties, since we have cell phones and Wi-Fi and all this stuff, and everybody's so scared of the EMF causing cancer and all this other stuff, because it seemed like everybody had like these cancerous lesions on their faces as they were transforming. But what happens is it's actually starting at the child age. So we have our standard set of characters, Duddits and the crew, and the like a giant red ball, if you will, like somehow comes like a meteor, lands in a playground, and Duddits is the one that just happens upon the ball. And because he happens upon the ball, he unlocks this kind of parasite or whatever, which actually lodges into his brain. And then Duddits, because he is handicapped for some reason, that's the one thing that the aliens didn't know was going to be like the deterrent, the blocker. Like they can't completely take over Duddits 100% because he's able to like partition himself in a way that lets the alien kind of gets like put in the memory locker, but as time evolves on, his essence or whatever, his close proximity to other people, the memory, the catching of the dreams concept, somehow there's like a telepathic transference of the alien code, and it propagates amongst all of the kids. So as they grow up along their lifetimes, they're still connected for some reason, but they don't know why they're connected, and they're kind of absorbing the alien powers, but not fully turning into an alien until they get towards the end of their adult life when they go on these camping trips to get it back out into the woods. And it's at that moment that they realize that there's something wrong with each one of them and why their lives have been so kind of down in the dumps, right? The psychiatrist wants to kill himself. The other guy jumps in front of the car, and Beeve is just Beeve, and he seems like he's a complete loser to begin with. And the car salesman guy never really has good luck with women. And so there's always been something kind of off about these four men. And that offness is because they were kind of pseudo-infected. And then as the movie progresses, all four of them actually get to a point where the alien is kind of now fully taken over, but they're each locked inside of their own memory vaults. So they're still able to communicate with each other because they can still talk to each other in their dreams. So even though they're in their subconscious, they're kind of in a dream state. And that's how they're able to communicate with each other to eventually figure out how they need to find Duddits. So then the alien versions of them actually make it to go find Duddits because they realize they have to kill Duddits. But because Duddits had the handicap, Duddits is able to overcome, and that's why he turns into the alien at the end of the movie, because he is the alien, but he's able to actually reprogram the alien DNA with his human DNA, takes the alien form as the humans in order to release all of his friends. The end.
I'll come back to that once we each do our pitches. Wayne, you were me.
I'll go next. Okay. And Troy, some of your ideas kind of fill in the blanks of what I had in mind. Hear me out. I think we need a lot more backstory than the original Dreamcatcher movie, and maybe even in the book, because they allude to the fact with the UFOs going way back to the 40s and 50s and all of that. So I think our movie should start in the 40s and 50s with Roswell, maybe from a different angle than what we normally see, and then even touch on Derry a little bit, and then the kids. And I think our version needs to be much more linear. I know I love things that have flashbacks, flash forward, flash sideways, Lost. But for this movie, I think it needs to be more linear and start and go in order, because the story is kind of convoluted enough. And the aliens aren't really here to take over our world. That's kind of stuck up on our behalf. They're kind of using us as a disposable springboard to actually take over a different, more advanced planet of beings, which if the movie is successful and we get a sequel, we can touch on that. But let's stick to this. The best tie into the actual Dreamcatcher lore, at the same time as the UFO lore in Roswell, what was that, New Mexico? Mm-hmm. We set our movie, of course, they all come from Derry because you got to do that in Maine and have Derry. But our movie will be set maybe about 3 hours from Roswell in Santa Fe. So it'll make a lot more sense, I think, why we've got the aliens so close by, as well as the Dreamcatchers from the Native American land. And why are they so far from Derry? Well, all of our group of friends realized that something's not quite right with Derry, and they all vowed to get away as adults, and they did. One of them moves to L.A. to be an actor or whatever. One of them moved to Phoenix to get out of the snow and the cold. But they all want to go on one of these skiing or hunting trips to Santa Fe up in the mountains. And so that's why they are so close to Roswell and so close to the aliens. And you know how the movie It made people afraid of clowns? This kind of touches on what Troy has in his as well. Let's have Dreamcatcher make people wary of the possibility of minor telepathy, and maybe they will mistake feelings of intuition as contagious telepathy, ponder it too much, grow paranoid, and have worries of going insane. In fact, we could even add a subtitle to our movie and call it Dreamcatcher, The Battle for Your Mind.
I like it.
The end.
Okay.
Till the sequel.
Man, everybody's got some cool ideas right now. So the end till the sequel. Mine is first I would start with the child. I do agree on the linear thing, and I'm going to go there in a second. I would start with childhood because I would want it more linear. I would skip flashbacks, tell the story in that linear way. So you've got Beeve, Jonesy, Pete, and Henry. They save Duddits, and they see they have something special about them. Now, I see it differently than you two. I don't want an explanation for that, or at least I don't in my pitch. But I kind of like the idea of they encounter an alien, the alien force, and that is what bestows them with. Like, Duddits is the conduit, and, you know, that he receives the most of it. The other ones are somehow connected to him or touching him at the time that he touches maybe this red ball. So they also get psychic energy, or they get different energies. I like that idea more so than I like anything with Duddits being an alien. I don't like that, but I'll get there. But I really like that idea, Troy. That was really cool. And I love Wayne's idea of going back to the past and starting way back in the past, and then basically meeting. Well, I'm going on your pitches. I got to go back to mine. Okay, so they see he has something special about him. They really bond when Josie goes missing, and we see clearly what Duddits leaves them with the gifts. So you flash forward, and I'm keeping more faithful to what the book was. I didn't go too far off of it, but I flash forward to the present day. Jonesy calls Beeve, and Beeve tells him to be careful right as he's crossing the street, and he gets hit by the car. I love that moment in the movie. I definitely want that moment to happen in the new movie. Flash forward from that to the gang gathering at Jonesy's house, saying, "Okay, you're healed." And it's basically a year later, whatever. Let's finally take that annual hunting trip that we couldn't take because you got hit by the car. From there on, I would play it very similarly. Pete and Henry split up, encounter the slug on the road. Beeve is murdered by the slug in the cabin from the dead guy. I would make sure that it isn't an ass slug. I would make it come out of its mouth, maybe. I mean, it can come out of its mouth just as easy as it can come out of its butt. So let's go for the less gross route. my preference. So once Beeve and Pete are dead, it's time to flesh out the characters of Henry and Jonesy. As Jonesy is taken over, I want Henry to return to the cabin where he feels very uneasy, but he can't figure out why. Now, we wouldn't have seen that the slug had taken over Jonesy. We just know that Beeve is dead, and Jonesy can't find... At the time, last we saw him, Jonesy couldn't find anything. So then we get like a 10 to 15 minute segment of dialogue. Just dialogue, just well-placed camera shots, back and forth, where we slowly start to realize that Jonesy is not that Jonesy, just as Henry also realizes that he's not his friend Jonesy. And yeah, so you get a little bit of the audience doesn't know this ahead of time. We find out when Henry finds out, basically. And it's not psychic that he learns it. He learns it just because they are close. They are real friends. They have a bond. And he notices something different about his friend, and he finally puts it together. I think that's important. Because the one thing I felt like this movie didn't do a very good job of, or one of the many things, it never felt like they established that these guys are really close friends. They told me they were. They kept saying they were. But I never really felt like they were really close friends. And that, to me, is an important aspect. So if you're going to have two characters that are at odds for the last third of the movie, I think you need that 10 minutes where you get that real solid foundation for their friendship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because if they were really close friends, he would know right away, hey, man, you never learned how to speak British.
Exactly.
Well played. So after a scuffle, Henry escapes and runs into the military. I'm with you, Troy. Now that I have, that I've heard your pitch, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I should have just ditched the military. I was too slave to the material. Kurtz seems on Henry's side in my pitch. Kurtz seems on Henry's side. So he even gets Duddits. And basically, I completely kick off Tom Sizemore's character, since I thought he was completely pointless in the movie anyway. We didn't really need him. And you have Kurtz or Curtis. I don't really care what you call him. He helps them track down Mr. Gray because he realizes that these guys have a way in to Mr. Gray. And Kurtz tries to kill them all. Duddits stops them. He's hurt in the process. Henry is forced to help Duddits finish Mr. Gray. He reaches out to Jonesy one last time to let him know he loves him. Using all their powers, Duddits and Henry evaporate Mr. Gray, which unfortunately kills Jonesy, and the power used drains the life from Duddits. Also, Duddits is a damn human being, by the way. And as the camera pans out, we see what looks to be a Dreamcatcher design in the snow. Not boldly, just softly layered in the snow. It looks like a Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, nothing too in your face.
No. That was my pitch. So now we work to put these together. So what do you guys think? Who wants to try to mold this together first?
That's where the tall order comes in. How to bring the best of all three ideas into one.
Well, here's the thing. I completely agree with Troy. Ditch the military. So I'm okay with kicking that out. Yeah? Wayne, you on board?
Right.
Okay.
I see no reason after hearing your arguments why they would even be there. Just because they're in the book, they don't have to be. Yeah,
you can do a passing reference, kind of like a mist reference where, the military up on Arrowhead Mountain or something. I don't know, but just a passing reference that they're maybe in the area, but we don't have to have them involved. I think that would keep the story more personal.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a go.
And do we want to still stick with the alien angle? Because being that it is a Stephen King property and it is, if we say, take place in Derry, Maine, there is a possibility that maybe these entities are coming from some other plane of existence potentially.
True. Very true.
I think
I'm trying to be cautious on how I explain that since
no, I get what you're saying. I think unless you're just rewriting the entire book, you have to have something true to the core of the property. I think Alien and
it still technically would be alien to our world.
Here's the
thing, but not necessarily an alien as an outer space alien.
I think if you change something like that, you got to have a really good reason. I don't think there's a really good reason. It's no alien from outer space or interdimensional. They want to take over the world. That's the ultimate goal. So does it matter enough to really change it is how I would say it.
If we go that route, is there a way that we could still tie them into the UFO lore, even if we don't really see a spaceship?
Yeah, I keep going back to the low men, Wayne. Like maybe these are the low men, and the low men are coming to inhabit bodies because they don't have bodies of their own. And to us, it seems like where would these people come from? Well, clearly they're aliens. Where else would they come from? Because nobody's aware that there might be other portals to other worlds.
And maybe they just, the general population thinks they saw a flying saucer because they did see these walk-ins or low men around.
But only if you're a true King fan would you get these references.
I think you
could we still have it set in New Mexico around Roswell so it would play up the whole lore?
Yeah, we could.
Because who doesn't want to get away from Derry, Maine?
Well, it still leads back to Derry, Maine, right? So they end up there,
right?
So it's
I think if you're in Roswell, you go with the traditional alien route. If you're in Maine, you could play into the Stephen King lore and go with the low men concept for the walk-ins.
I would stick with aliens personally. I don't see any reason I still haven't heard a good reason to change it other than King uses it sometimes. He uses aliens too. So.
Okay. Why don't we go with aliens, but if we wanted, we could even have one of the characters flip it around. And even though they are aliens, he thinks that they might be low men or interdimensional beings of some sort. Who knows?
I don't think that would work though, because nobody would get the reference.
That's true.
Like the only way that would work is if the boys, as they're younger, are growing up in Derry and eventually make it to Roswell to do the camping trip or whatever it is. And then like Duddits, for example, would have to be maybe from not of this world. Maybe he's not necessarily a low man, but maybe he's like a Jake or a Roland or some other member of the tower.
Well, there are hints in the book that he could be like a breaker, like
exactly
Brodigan.
What I was thinking.
Brodigan is. There's even a phrase in there that makes you think that it sees the path of the beam. That's all I'm going to say.
Guys, you have to explain stuff. 99% of the people don't read all the King books, so we got to explain it for them.
Aaron, I think 99% of the people have read The Dark Tower as far as the Stephen King diehard fans. But yeah, maybe we don't want to get that obscure just for the sake of making a lot of Stephen King fans real giddy with excitement.
Because I do believe that Duddits was a breaker. Like he was
explain what a breaker is.
The breakers are the people that literally have the ability to bring the Dark Tower to its knees,
as well as enhance abilities in other people. And Anthony Hopkins was a breaker, and I know you've done another podcast of featuring Anthony Hopkins. So he's Brodigan in Hearts in Atlantis.
Well, here's what I think. What it sounds to me is you guys are very excited for Dark Tower. But right now we're on Dreamcatcher.
Isn't that what we're here for tonight?
So I'm going to use my cut. We're keeping it an Alien. We're going to keep it somewhat grounded in what this book is.
Okay.
As opposed to making it an extension of Dark Tower. Now you can bring your low men or whatever in, but you got to explain them. You have to be able to explain it to people that don't know what that is, because a lot of people, I know the diehards know Dark Tower, but a lot of people listening won't know what the Dark Tower is. So you have to be able to explain what those characters are. I don't care if there's some cross-reference.
Which you can't do because you don't get the explanation until the Dark Tower, which is why it's so cool.
Then you can't use them. There's your rule.
And to be frank, in the book, brings up all of those things that I just touched on, but he doesn't really explain them in the book. And that's another reason why the Dreamcatcher book, in addition to the movie, is kind of incoherent, because he just throws out things like they're playing cribbage in Derry. There's low men. There's the path of the beam. There's breakers. And he doesn't even explain it. So unless you know the Dark Tower lore, you're right. So Aaron, I'm going to side with you on your cut.
Sweet.
You can't overcut his cut. That's the rule. So you're screwed anyway.
Even if I have two cuts?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have two cuts.
Even if you have two cuts, you can't cut a cut. But it's okay, because it's not like I was pulling like a slap in the face cut. It's just more like, let's get back on track, guys. So Alien, he's an alien. I definitely, I don't want Duddits an alien, but here, how do you combine the stories?
Well, I do like the concept of the fact that Duddits is handicapped. Like, that's the reason why the aliens can't take him over. I like that. Like, it's just because the guy's handicapped doesn't mean like he's different, or just because they're picking on him because he's handicapped. I don't like that. I'm like, especially in this case where they're shoving poop in his mouth. I mean, that's just disgusting.
Right.
I think the reason why he's handicapped specifically is because that makes him immune to the alien invasion. Okay. And it's something that aliens don't take into account in their master plan.
Right. They have no way to have foreseen that it was going to come to that.
I like that. You could tie all of this together. They grew up in New Mexico. Isn't that basically what you're pitching? Early New Mexico, shortly after the aliens landed, they came across something, but we don't really get to see what it is. But it could be I don't know about a red ball.
I just went with a red ball because, like, if I was a handicapped kid and I'm like, oh, look, a ball, I would pick it up, and then it would be the spores, and it dissolves, and that's kind of where I was going with the red ball. But it could be anything, right? It could be
maybe it's just a ship.
It could be a giant a small Apple TV that glows fluorescent stuff in the middle of an apple orchard, Wayne.
Yes, it very well could. The early Apple TV, not the current one.
Not the current one.
Or maybe it could be a ship, just like Roswell. So you could do it in the 40s. So you actually have a little bit of that Stand By Me vibe when you flash forward like 30 years or whatever. But like they go to the ship, they see it, they don't know what the heck is going on, and basically he touches it, and because he's handicapped, you see something go through him, and the other guys grab him to pull him off, and because they grab him, they get small ramifications of what he received from it.
I like it.
Yeah, and then you go, you flash forward 30 years, and he's actually been he's being cared for at a home in Maine, and they plan on reuniting it at this because of Jonesy's accident that happened wherever they're based at. They reunite, they come back to Maine, or they come to Maine to go to this hunting lodge because they know it's close to where Duddits is. So they're going to do it twofold. They're going to meet, they're going to go hunting, and then they're going to go see Duddits. So all that stuff can come back together. Huh?
Okay.
Does that work?
Are we gonna? You get the Roswell connection without the military, but yet you still get the main connection to keep it within the Stephen King ecosystem.
Exactly.
And are we going to have any of Duddits' abilities slightly rub off on the other boys as far as giving them a little bit of telepathy, or that out altogether?
No. When Duddits basically touched the ship, and something transferred into him from the alien, because he's human, he took something in, and we could see it visibly. We could see something enter his body, which is what makes him be able to do the things that he can do to find Josie later on and so forth. He finds her in New Mexico, not Maine. And when they pull him off the ship, the four boys are pulling because he can't get off the ship. They can't force him off. Then a little bit of that stuff gets transferred to him. So they each get a certain kind of power, whereas he holds all of that.
Right. Like it's like one had the power of sight. One had the power of, looking at the past or seeing the future. And so when they touch each other, it's like they're getting only 1/4 of whatever Duddits got initially.
Oh, okay. Quick question then. Do we want to contain it to just our core group of friends? Whereas in the book, they kind of touch on the fact that the aliens are kind of accidentally spreading a little bit of minor telepathy to everybody that's close to them, even the military, which we're cutting out of our movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say just keep it to the friends.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why these 4? That's what makes the movie interesting.
Well, because they had that connection. They were connected to Duddits, and he's not capable of anything. So maybe they're drawn to that area because the guys are actually there, because they do still have some of that, and Duddits is also there, so that power is there. So they came back since the Roswell incident. 30 years later, they're coming back to make another attempt. And, because they crashed the first time, so they died. This time they're coming back, and they sense like their own power in that area, that localized area. That's why they're going to the Derry, Maine, because the guys are there. Duddits is nearby. They know this is the area, so that's why they're coming after the guys to a degree. They're in the area.
So the power that they have is almost like the EM wave I was talking about, but it's more of a ET phone home thing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Then there's the whole, how do we get to the conclusion aspect of it, right? So Duddits is in the home. The 4 men have these powers that they've come to like either enhance or hone or understand over time. But then we have to figure out a way for a Mr. Gray character to come into the equation. Now, do we go back to the memory locker, and the more and more you use your powers, the more and more you turn into an alien, which was my idea? Or is there actually an alien landing and we have a Mr. Gray confrontation with a fifth entity?
How about the more and more you use the power to fight them or to learn about them or whatever, the more and more Mr. Gray can find them. Like it increases their energy. So it's like a beacon. It's like a GPS signal. And
do they know that? So they're trying to conserve using those powers?
They don't. They learn it once Beav is the first one. Like Mr. Gray shows up because he's using it. He's doing something in the cabin or something. Or the guy maybe shows up sick. The guy shows up sick, similar. And he's using it to try to figure out what's going on with the guy because the guy can't talk or something. And
like a certain king being able to find a certain telepath.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
potentially
just the energy glows or something along those lines. You guys got another idea? I'm just trying to.
No, I like that. Just the way you said it reminded me of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, because you might even say it glows. Sorry.
Which is actually kind of funny because I said, well, then maybe the glow is actually seen by the audience that's watching the movie. Maybe the glow is like a red to get the red dust without the red spores being there.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe the glow is just the red for the throwback.
I like it.
Which is kind of why I like the low men idea, because low men have that glow about them. But
well, you can allude to
we digress.
I don't know what low men are, but maybe these guys are secretly low men. How's that? I don't know.
Why not? If the movie's successful and we get that sequel, maybe it could be touched on further there.
There you go.
Right.
All right, so we basically have the rest of it. I don't think anybody really differed too much in how it played out. Right? It still ends up being Henry and Duddits versus Mr. Gray.
Except I had Duddits turn into the alien because he had all the powers.
Yeah, and I would. It
was almost like it was like Neo in the Matrix, like rewriting the code.
I don't like that one. I liked it better that it's like that. I liked better in what I read about the book. The thing I liked about that is he's a handicapped kid who, you never see a handicapped kid given special abilities in anything. It's always the cool guy or the loner or whatever, but it's never the guy that can't do anything. He can't fight back. He's been picked on his whole life. Now he has the opportunity to do something nobody will ever believe he did. He has the opportunity to save the world because of these powers that he inexplicably arrived to. I love that aspect of it. To me, that's the best part of it.
I got it. Okay. So they're coming back to
he's
Maine.
A robot. I am going to take one of Wayne's cuts and I'm going to throw it at you.
So you said they're coming back to Maine because for some reason they wanted to do this hunting trip, and because Duddits is there and they're coming to visit Duddits.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what happens is when Duddits touches the ship and he gets the power, and we get some kind of flash of explaining of what this power is, and then they're trying to pull him off, and then the power secedes into the 4 boys, that Duddits loses the power at that moment. And so what they end up realizing is that as the movie plays out for the climax, it's not that all 4 boys still stay alive the entire time. None of the 4 die. And it's them trying to prevent Mr. Gray from escaping the quarantined area or infecting other people. And they realize the only way we can kill Mr. Gray is because Duddits was the one that got us these powers in the first place. They go get Duddits, and when all 4 boys retouch Duddits gets the power back in order for it's like a channeling. Like he's drawing all their dreams together to then make one giant energy blast or blah blah blah.
What do you want? All the boys
like all 5 of them need to be touching like the Dreamcatchers were in order for Duddits to have the power he needs to defeat Mr. Gray.
But it might be too inconvenient or convenient for them to be able to pass the power back and forth to each other like that.
Well, they're not passing the power back and forth. They each have a quarter of the power. They each have their own independent ability. But in order to defeat Mr. Gray, you need one channeled person to have all 4 pieces. So it's almost like Wonder Twin powers activate, but you need all 5 of them together in order for the power to be strong enough to overcome Mr. Gray. So that's why they come. They're like, hey, we're visiting Duddits in the hospital or whatever, wherever the home he's at or whatever. And then they kind of realize as they're trying to find different ways to beat Mr. Gray, oh my gosh, we really need Duddits. He was there when this whole thing started. So you get the same kind of reveal, but then Duddits still stays human. He just is he's the link. He's the catcher.
I'm okay with that part of it, but he also would have had to save Josie. So I mean, he still has he maybe it's diluted when the boys separate. He gets full power when they all come back together.
Right.
That makes more sense to me than he loses his power completely. It dissipates a little bit, but when they come back together, he's maxed out. But I don't know about if you have all 4 of them, that means nobody can die.
Yeah, you could have the random local townsfolk die. Like maybe Jones's mom dies, or the lady at the home that's at the caretaker at the home dies, or I think all 4 of them, or maybe there are two teams of 2 and they're fighting the Mr. Gray on 2 different fronts kind of thing, where the convergence isn't at the watershed, but it's at the hospital where Duddits is, which could be across the street from the watershed if you still want to have the watershed play into it, where they're trying to escape and formulate a plan, and then Gray chases them down to the watershed across the street from the hospital.
Through Jonesy. He would still take over Jonesy.
I don't know if Mr. Gray has to take over any of the 4 people necessarily.
Well, then what would be his physical representation?
Whatever, in the book, he just became Bill Clinton out of thin air for no reason.
No, not Bill Clinton. That just sounds retarded.
Maybe the Dreamcatcher part is whatever you're thinking about is the representation it takes. And that's where the telepathy comes into play. It can shapeshift.
I think we have to have, for better or worse, I think we have to have Mr. Gray take over Jonesy just to keep it true to the, as Aaron said, the source material.
I agree with that.
Is that a cut? Do I hear a cut? Is Wayne going to use a cut?
No, he doesn't need one. 2 of us agreed. So Jonesy's there.
But as a formality, if you want, I'll say cut.
There you go. Problem solved. Jonesy.
So then the question is, why does Jonesy turn? What's the process of Jonesy becoming Mr. Gray?
No, there's no question. We already know it.
Is it because Jonesy runs across Mr. Gray first?
Same thing. They're just at the cabin. Now, if Wayne agrees that nobody dies, then we can go that route and we can do it that way. Or we can have 1 or 2 of the guys still die so that he's still a threat. Jonesy's a real threat. But
Duddits get full power?
Because Duddits gets enough power from 2 people to kill him. He needs more than just himself to do it. So with 2 of them, he could do it. He can't do it alone.
Or if Jones is technically Mr. Gray, when Mr. Gray stabs Duddits when Duddits is on the floor in the movie, maybe the other 3 touch Duddits, which does complete the entire 5 people. Because like you said, Jones is still stuck in the brain, in his memory locker or whatever it is. So technically all 5 are still there. And that's how they get Mr. Gray to come out of Jones. So the power actually gets Jones out of Mr. Gray, or Mr. Gray out of Jones, puts him in his real form so that they're actually able to kill him. Which is kind of a play off of It, right? It's really a spirit until he takes his actual real form. So in this case, they all have to touch each other in order to release Jones and Gray and separate them, and then they can kill his physical form, Mr. Gray's physical form.
I'm fine with that, but Wayne, you got to decide, because I'm with killing a couple of them, and he's with keeping all 4 alive. So you got to decide which one's it going to be.
Well, first, let's say we're not going to stab anybody with toothpicks. We're not going to do that.
Nope.
I think these days it seems like too many movies have far too many casualties, like to try to build up some sort of extra momentum or give them the cause for revenge. I'd like to go with none of them die. Let's actually have a relatively happy ending where all of our main characters live.
Okay.
But for how long? We don't know. But they do live to the end of the movie.
So then somebody else would have to be taken, or Jonesy gets taken over because you already cut. That's what's going to happen. And then they all come together at the end. And like, I like Troy's idea then. If you're going to have that, then them together force it into another form that they can actually kill. An alien. Like, basically, it just looks like an alien that they can kill.
Right. The giant worm, squiddy teeth thing.
And then the movie's over. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, as long as there's not one of those little hidden
squids
slugs down in where they point, they zoom in on it so we know that it's not over.
How about
I want it to be kind of finalized.
How about we have a slug kind of easing its way to a manhole cover by the water drain? How about that? Would that work for you?
No.
Is that a cut I hear, Wayne?
Cut, please, Heavenly Father, cut.
And then you squish it right at the last second. Okay, I think we have a movie. I think it all makes sense now. I think we're all in the same place. I think pretty much everybody's idea was incorporated. I think we got a movie, guys. I don't know about you guys, but I think we got a real one, much better than the Dreamcatcher originally that we had.
So the recap would be is that they grow up in Roswell. They all touch their Duddits touches the ship that transfers the power to them. A residual amount remains in Duddits. Somehow they go through life with these powers, don't know what they are, but it keeps them connected for some reason. So they always get together and have these like adventures. This one adventure happens to be to go visit Duddits because he ends up getting put in a home of some kind. And so they go to Maine to visit Duddits. When Mr. Gray lands, Mr. Gray is somehow able to take over Jones. Maybe he's out shopping for supplies. I don't know what it might be. But he takes over Jones. Jones comes back to the cabin. They're kind of like, oh, you're a little strange. And so then they're trying to figure out how to defeat him. And as they're defeating him, like other aliens might show up, and that kind of gets the drama and the plot of, can we get back to the cabin? Can we get back to Duddits?
No, we don't have to have, Troy, you always want to add stuff that no one talked about or agreed to.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the action is.
The action is we're trying to get to Jonesy because we know that Jonesy is going to determine that he's going to put the stuff in the water supply to destroy the world. That's the plot.
But you also got to get one person to Duddits to get Duddits.
Yeah, well, Henry can go and grab Duddits, and I'll meet you at the water supply place.
Water treatment center.
Yeah.
Then they all touch each other, and
whoa.
They all place their hands on each other's arms.
Okay, better.
Wow.
Which then releases them into two separate beings, and they're able to kill Mr. Gray.
Why not?
There you go.
And okay.
Finn. Woohoo! All right, so the better question, now that we have a movie, who should direct it? Wayne, I want you to throw out your option first because I might know who it might be.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw a curveball on this one. Although my obvious choice from all of my previous episodes of Remake This Movie Right would probably work, I'd like to suggest Damon Lindelof.
The direct?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm fine with it. Why not? That way, if it's awful, it's just one more stain on his resume. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, then in that case, why don't you just bring back M. Night Shyamalan?
No, he hasn't directed an episode, so it would be his first. It would be his directorial debut. All right, I'm in. Let's do it, Damon Lindelof. That's 2 against, and you don't have any cuts, Troy, so you can throw out who you had.
I didn't even get to suggest mine. Can I at least suggest mine?
You can suggest yours, sure.
I said Dan Trachtenberg, who did Cloverfield Lane, 10 Cloverfield Lane. I thought for that being his directorial debut was a fantastic movie. And I think this has the same kind of suspense, intense, alien, which is right up Dan Trachtenberg's alley.
That's good. But I'm still pretty excited about the idea of Damon Lindelof making a bad movie and it being stuck on his resume. So I'm going to go with that.
We're going with Damon Lindelof to make a great movie.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. Now, based on a remake, we get to recast, let's say, the 2 leads. That's Henry and Jonesy. You can throw out other people if you want, but Troy, who do you have for Henry and Jonesy? Okay. Wayne?
All right. What I'd like to do is for the adults, because in so many of these, when we go to the adults, they're just around 30-ish. I think we should go with adults more in the 40 to 50 age range, and we can build that into the movie if you'd like.
Okay.
I think for me, the best actor in the original was Thomas Jane, who played Henry. Mm-hmm. And now we see him on The Expanse. I really like the work that he's been doing on The Expanse, but I would like to have him play Jonesy / Mr. Gray and bring a really dark, smart tone to it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay.
For Duddits, because I love the Leftovers and so much about that show, I think Duddits could be played very convincingly by Christopher Eccleston.
I do know who he is now that I think about it. Yeah, those are really good picks. Troy, do you have somebody? I have people, but I really like the Thomas Jane angle. That's kind of cool.
Christopher Eccleston as Duddits would be perfect. I was thinking Colin Ferguson from Eureka would be like the Benny character.
I don't know.
Benny character?
The Benny character?
Yeah, the Jason Lee character.
Oh, Beaver?
Beaver.
Okay.
It was a B.
Okay.
It was so terrible. I couldn't remember the character name.
With good reason.
Exactly.
But that'll work.
I have Aaron Paul as who I suggested for Henry. This is 2 podcasts in a row I brought him up, but I feel like Aaron Paul is a great actor that nobody talks about.
Oh, he's destined to be in a Stephen King movie.
I like where you guys are. I love the idea of bringing Thomas Jane back. I think that's really cool. Who did you have for? Oh, you had done it. So I could have Aaron Paul for Henry because nobody else had really cast Henry. Sweet. Yep. Boom. Got a movie. Any nostalgic moments? Anything from the first movie you gotta have here? And by the way, did we all agree that the slug is coming out of the mouth, no longer the ass?
I think it adds a little bit more of a horror element to it, so I think it's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. One iconic scene, one major one and one minor one. I somehow think we need to recreate the scene of the woman sitting in the middle of the snow-covered road. Because I'm like, what? It took me a while to figure out what in the heck is going on here. And that just really stood out visually. And when we get to Derry, Maine, if somebody lives there, they have to live at 19 Maple Lane.
Yep.
Done. That's great.
And we already have the water treatment facility, so we have the water treatment shout out for Derry, Maine as well, which would have been mine.
And while they're driving through town, can there just be like a little clown walking through town just randomly? Hey, was that a clown? Weird.
Absolutely.
Pennywise's Arcade. It was across the street from the hospital.
So basically just pepper it with Stephen King references.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got one more clip from the original Dreamcatcher.
What we doing? We have some work to do now.
Troy, you know what happens now? Why don't you introduce Mr. Wayne Henderson's new final pitch?
I thought it'd be fun to just introduce himself. That'd be so meta.
Wayne, do you want to introduce yourself?
And now for our final pitch to make sense of what we just discussed and turn it into a very dramatic movie trailer. It's Wayne Henderson from MediaVoiceovers.com. Take it away, Wayne.
That's awesome.
Something alien has crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, and 5 friends out for a little adventure have found it. One friend, the mentally impaired Duddits, soon finds himself dominated by an unseen force. As the other boys work together to tear Duddits away, they come to each possess specific abilities. As time often does, weeks turn to years, years turn to decades, and life begins to get in the way. After a tragic car accident almost snuffs the life out from Jonesy, and with Duddits ailing in a facility in Maine that resides at 19 Maple Lane, Henry, Jonesy, Pete, and Beeve decide to visit their friend one last time and complete their trip with a hunting retreat at their favorite cabin. Unfortunately, they are not alone. Their past returns to haunt them as our gang comes face to face with Mr. Gray, an alien threat with a singular mission: to destroy the human race. Next summer, 5 friends will reunite to prove that no power in the universe can defeat true friendship. Prepare yourself as Damon Lindelof. Yes! Excuse me. As Damon Lindelof creates new life from the Stephen King bestseller. Only, unlike the original film, this time he does it with his mouth. This is Stephen King's Dreamcatcher.
Great job, you. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. All right. Well, before we close the show out, we are going to share some listener memories of the film. We always post the film that we're going to be covering in our Facebook group, and you can share your memories or thoughts on the movie there. This one have mostly interesting stuff. Josh Steima, he says, I love everything about it, with the exception of Morgan Freeman's obnoxious eyebrows. Josh, that was the best part about his performance. Cast is great, and the occasional dark humor totally works for me. So Josh is a big fan. Tyler Seaver, I remember seeing it, and that's about it. Very forgettable. Okay. Sherry Odom, another one that the memory includes my late husband. I was so excited when it was coming out, and he just rolled his eyes and said, please, honey, don't spend the whole time complaining. And, of course, I did. The only thing I liked was the room full of memories. I thought that matched the description in the book entirely. But, when it comes to King, movies, SSDD. For those that don't know, that means same shit, different day. I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with. Well, I hope you liked it. I hope you do. Peter Dennis, the thing I remember about this is how did this get made episode, which is hilarious. I think the movie had promise but got lost somewhere along the way, which makes it a good choice for a Remake It Right. I haven't heard that, so I'm going to have to listen. Have either one of you heard that?
No. That'd be really interesting to watch or hear or listen or whatever.
It's a podcast. You just listen to it. But it could be interpretive dance. There might be a video somewhere. Dave McGraw, he says, it's been a while, but I remember not hating it like other people. It certainly had its problems, but it was a high-budget B-movie, sci-fi creature feature, and I find it pretty hard to dislike those kinds of movies. Dave, you should watch it again. Manuel Perez, I was going to watch it, but then a friend told me it was so bad, so I never got around to watching it. I don't think it... Do you guys think it's that bad, really?
It's way too long. I mean, if it was more like an hour 45, it'd probably be worth watching. But man, it was like when Mr. Gray finally shows up and you're like, there's still another hour and 40 minutes of this movie. It was like, son of a... What the hell are they going to do for an hour and 40 minutes?
I thought almost the same thing when I thought for sure it was wrapping up and just about done. I paused it just for a second to see how much was left, and I thought to myself, there's 40 more minutes? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the length makes it hard to sit through, but yeah, the first hour is definitely worth a watch. Minus the jumping. I just got hit by a car and now I'm alive, but
right. And just don't watch it while you're sitting in the restroom and holding on to toothpicks, and I think you're okay.
Yeah, don't eat any warm soup by the fire.
No.
Ty Nelson says, I remember kind of liking it. That's a question mark. That's not me saying it. I just had a question mark. Haven't seen it since the theater. Jason Lee being in it went a long way for this Kevin Smith fanboy. Yeah, I liked everybody in the movie, actually. I just can't beat a script sometimes. Jen Sansevier, I love the novel, saw the movie and didn't hate it, but I never watched it again once. It was not a rinse and repeat for me. Brady Joe, I was young and I enjoyed it even though I knew it was crap. And speaking of crap, that brings me to what I remember most, all the poop. I mean, how can you watch this movie and not be scared by that? Or scarred by that, scarred by that. I think King has a thing for nasty bodily fluid expulsion scenes.
Oh, no doubt.
Is it really?
I think that's probably why I had a phobia and probably didn't remember it until I rewatched it. But I never, if I kill a bug or something, I never flush it down the toilet. I'm always afraid of it crawling back up.
No, really?
Seriously. Like if I kill a spider, you don't flush it down the toilet. You throw it in the garbage. Or put it back outside. You never put it in the toilet. It's probably because of this movie in the theater, and I just completely blocked it in my mind. Put it back in my memory vault and just closed that file cabinet and carried the box out on a dolly. But yeah, I bet you that's probably why I have this phobia of stuff coming back up out of the toilet is from this movie.
I'm the opposite. I smash it to smithereens, so there's no way it's coming back from anything, and then I flush it down the toilet.
Mm-hmm. I smash it, and then I go find its family and smash it too. Make sure the message gets sent clear. You know what I mean?
The word is spreading through their little colony.
Even their little pieces could come back together. There are radioactive turtles living down there.
Oh, my Lord. Pizza. Jeff Gentry, last one. Love the cast except for Freeman. Wow. Love the cast except for Morgan Freeman. That's something you don't hear very often.
He was pretty bad in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he means in this performance or just in general. I don't know how he means.
Or maybe it was Freeman's best performance of his entire career because he knew it was so bad crazy that he just totally acted it over the top on purpose.
It's possible. He says the first act was okay, but then it went downhill. The novel was good. I didn't read that one, but Wayne said the audiobook was long.
Yep, 22 and a half hours. But it does explain, in a way, why Morgan Freeman's character is so crazy, is because all of those military personnel being so close to the aliens, they all got a little bit of minor telepathy. And so they were accidentally reading people's minds, thinking that the people were saying obnoxious things to them out loud, but they were just thinking them, and then they'd shoot them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of a mind bender trick going on that basically drives them crazy.
Exactly.
That's cool. I kind of like that, actually. That's pretty cool. Well, thank you guys for those thoughts, and thanks to you guys for helping us remake this movie right. Wayne Henderson is available at mediavoiceovers.com, but where else are you available?
I'm at the Packers Fan Podcast at packersfanpodcast.com. You know, it's the podcast that's dedicated to your 13-time NFL champion, Green Bay Packers.
And preseason has begun.
Oh, yeah. Go Pack, go.
And Troy Heinritz, where can people find you?
You can hear me talking about everything related to the Blacklist on the Blacklist Exposed. That's at theblacklistexposed.com. Coming back for season 5 in October of this year. It's going to be fantastic. And you can hear me with Wayne, of course, on the Packers Fan Podcast as well.
And you can subscribe and review us at Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Google Play, Google Voice, Music, whatever the hell it's called, or your podcast app of choice. You can email us at remakethismovieright@gmail.com. You can find me, Aaron Peterson, on my other show, The Hollywood Outsider, as well as I'm on the Blacklist Exposed with Mr. Troy. We're on Twitter at Remake Right. Our website is remakethismovieright.com. And remember, please share the show on your social media outlets. Let everybody know that you like the show so that they come and listen to the rest of them. Because that's how podcasts grow, is by word of mouth. And in this podcast space where there are literally thousands of podcasts, if you enjoy this concept, this episode, please be sure to share it with your friends and review us on iTunes. I keep asking people. Not many people do it. A lot of people listen, but not many people do that. It really only takes a minute, and we would really appreciate it. It does help the podcast quite a bit. Anything you guys want to say in closing about yourselves or Dreamcatcher or anything?
I'm just glad it's over.
And I just want to thank you again, Aaron, for having me on to talk some more Stephen King. And, you know, I don't watch all that many movies compared to the two of you, but when I do, I love to be part of Remake This Movie Right. Thank you.
Open invitation, Wayne, whenever you want to come back.
I can't wait till we remake Howard the Duck.
Oh, I'm all in for that. Howard the Duck will be fantastic. Can't wait.
I could do that. I could see that working. We should probably work that one out. All right, well, the credits have rolled on this remake, but be sure to come back for our next one. And remember that every film you love will get a reboot someday, and only you can remake that movie right. Howard the Duck. Wasn't that a song?
I think it was.
They made a song for the movie.
Yeah. I had such high hopes for that movie, and then when I found out it was going to have Leah Thompson as well, I thought, this is no fail, no possibility.
You were wrong.
I was greatly wrong.
Howard the Duck is better than Dreamcatcher.
Whoa. Whoa.
Snap. And another space egg, Troy.
Oh.
That movie had Tim Robbins and Jeffrey Jones. How bad could it have been?
Very. As it turns out, very. Jeffrey Jones is taking a little bit of a sour turn himself. So, yeah. And Troy, have we ever done a remake where we didn't have the movie made and you threw it completely, like threw something in completely out into left field and said, hey, what about this? Wait, nobody ever talked about that? Yeah, but that'd be cool, wouldn't it?
I just try to get it in there and see if it passes you by, since you're getting up in that old age area. So just keep me on your toes.
I'm gonna punch you in the duddits.
I duddits.